didn't do it 2 weeks ago, which put us a month since our last one. I went on a 3-day fishing trip with my brother to go smallie fishing in the mountains, kind of hills of Pennsylvania. Caught 160 smallmouth over a period of 3 days. It was insane. And I got back and you're like, you know what? I didn't put the time in to find a guest. So I'm just gonna skip it. And so we are back. I'm excited. Today we have Seth Yates, Tennessee kayak angler. So I'm excited to bring him on board. And the meat of tonight's discussion is going to be around kind of first time tournament kayak fishing, which is a little different than just regular tournament fishing. So it's gonna be good times. Things that we've learned. I've been in it a couple of years. Seth's been in it about a year, and so this will be good. But if you're not on YouTube, if you're listening in from Spotify or wherever, iHeartMedia or wherever, and you're like, hey, not on YouTube, I have a Facebook group. It's over 17,000 members and like 7-8 months old, called Kayak Fishing Freaks. So love for you to join me over there. Let me know where you came from. I know some of you are saying, hey, found you from the podcast. I would love to hear that and be a part of that. I think the hardest part of managing that group is all the freaking spam post that's in that crazy thing. Like every day, I think I've banned over 400 people to keep that thing legit. Nonetheless, interactive show tonight for those of you listening in. So please ask your questions. You can have side conversations, whatever it is. But I would like to bring to the show Seth. Welcome, my friend. How you doing?
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So tell us your story. Everybody listening in, I have talked to Seth a total of 30 seconds prior to this podcast. I found him because we are competing against one another at the Knucklehead, which we'll get into in a little bit to kind of give you an update on that, because it is the 4th month and final month. But nonetheless, let's back up a little bit. I was on your YouTube channel today and went back a couple years. You started posting videos, but now not bass videos. And so tell us how this all evolved for you.
Summer of 2020, my dad came down. My dad and all my sisters, I have 5 sisters. They all came down. We did this big camping trip out on Lake Barkley. Okay. And I just bought a couple cheap $200 kayaks, and my dad's like, hey, there's like a 50-foot hole right there off the point where we're going to be camping. Let's get up tomorrow morning, go out there and catfish. So we took some chicken breast out there, and I ended up catching, it might have been like 29, 30-inch catfish.
All right.
Biggest thing I'd ever caught, and just, I don't know, haven't been able to put it down since then. So then, did that for 2 years. And that it was a lifetime.
For 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. From the kayak or from the bank?
Start out mostly from the bank, but then kind of transition to just strictly kayak.
Okay.
I had that lifetime kayak, and I went I went far beyond that thing's weight capacity, to the point where I had to I built my own outriggers on it. I had 4 outriggers on it. I called it my quad yak. The thing was, I had to put a 30-pound thrust trolling motor on the side of it, because I had a 2x4 bolted behind me to the hull of the kayak.
Oh my gosh.
And that's what the motor sat right here beside me. I do like a mile and a half an hour.
Were you flipping it? Is that why you put outriggers on it, or were you getting close to?
No, I was sinking. I was close to sinking. Yeah.
All right. That's when you really know you got the thing overloaded.
I put the trolling motor on there, and then I had originally had a lead battery, just a 30 amp hour.
Things are double the weight.
Oh my goodness. And yeah, I was sitting out there anchored up, and I'm like, man, if I just lean just that much to the side, like water's going to come up over the side on me. I was like, I got to do something about that.
The quad yak. Folks.
The quad yak. That thing looked like it rolled out of a junkyard.
When did you retire that thing? Or do you still have it?
It's at my dad's house. He took it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Nice.
I made a camera mount out of a curtain rod on the front of it.
So why did you continue with the YouTube thing? How did you transition to the dark side of bass fishing?
It didn't start out as wanting to do the YouTube thing. Originally, I wanted pictures of anything I caught, but I can't take. And with catfishing, I can't just hold it up and take the selfie. And so And I tried getting people to go with me, and there aren't that many people interested in the catfishing piece of it, or kayak fishing, at least at the time, from what I could find. And so I was like, well, I'm going to get this cheap. It was a Casso. It was like $50 on Amazon.
Okay.
I was like, I'll just record it and then go back and just get screenshots. So I have the pictures and I can send them to my dad. Because that's what I really wanted to do, was just be able to send a picture to my dad. And then just watch that footage. I was like, oh, this is cool looking.
This always cracks me up how people get into it. Like, you had no desire of actually being a content creator. You're literally like, I could take still shots of the video that I'm taking.
Yeah, I specifically told my wife, I was like, I don't want to do this YouTube thing at all.
Okay. How'd that conversation go?
She wasn't opposed to it. She asked the question when I was like, I want to get this camera, I want to do this. And she's like, are you wanting to start doing YouTube? And like, no. And I didn't have any interest in doing it. I just wanted the pictures. And then I know you see the footage, and I'm like, this is actually really cool looking. And then you can, the other piece of this is I love, like, go to work and tell stories like, oh, this weekend I went and, I caught this, I did this. And
oh, yeah, my colleagues love that, by the way. Just love it. Yeah.
And I can watch people's eyes glaze over sometimes.
Yeah, I just keep talking. I still glaze over. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. From there, I like having the film to tell the story with. I just feel like it almost gets, I watch them more than anybody, because it's like getting to relive that fishing trip for me.
Yeah. Have you ever, so I do this with mine. And so I will catch a fish, a nice one. I'm like, okay, I know what I did. I did the pop thing. I did the everything I thought I did. Then I watched the video and I didn't do any of that. In fact, I was actually checking my phone when the thing hit, and I killed it, and that's when it hit. And I was like, what I think I'm doing to get these bass, a lot of times when I do the, going through the video footage, like, nope, that's not how it happened at all. But I learned things. So actually being a YouTuber, I hate that. Being a content creator, let's go with that. That's the only thing I've actually accepted. It actually has made me a better angler, because I've been able to literally watch the films like you would football or whatever. I watched the films and I was like, oh crap, that's how I did it. And so next time I'm out, I'm just kind of honing the craft. So well, tell us so you're transitioning through all this, you can bass fishing, and you're starting to put videos up, you're posting them, you're like, why not? I'm already in here, I'm already editing them, already looking at them, might as well post them. So how did you transition into, and how did you get connected with the knucklehead and like tournament fishing? Because I saw on your channel that you actually started getting into this more and more, a lot of the KBF stuff, and we're going to be talking about a lot of that tonight, especially around the rules. And a lot of people are like hesitant to get into tournament fishing. So share a little bit about your story and evolution into that.
Into the kayak bass fishing piece of it and tournaments.
Sure, tournaments. Yeah, how'd you transition all the way over to tournaments? That's a big jump from catfish 2 years ago to bass fishing to tournament. That's quite the evolution.
So there was a little fishing expo here in town back in, I think, 21.
Okay.
Yeah, 2021. That I went to and was there talking to some of the folks that owned a tackle shop here in town, and was just talking about catfishing from my kayak. And they're like, oh, hey, there's this guy here, his name's Ron, and like, he's the kayak catfishing guy around here. And so then they went over and introduced me to him, and that's, you hear me talk about him in all my videos. My buddy Ron started catfishing with him, because he was starting up just little local catfishing tournaments that we fished a few. And I don't know, over the course of that year, he kept talking about, you should come give bass fishing a try. And I'd always wanted to, but I didn't know the first thing about it. And I think in November timeframe, he brought up the February KBF tournament, the Trail Series tournament on Murray.
Okay.
I was like, you should go. And I was like, I was retiring from the Army at the time, so I was going to be on my my retirement leave, so I was going to have all the time to do it. And I was like, yeah, why not? Worst case, I just go down there for a few days and float around the lake in my kayak, which I
Right.
like doing that anyway.
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
how'd you do? That was your first ever tournament?
first ever.
Okay. Walk us through. I'm sure you're
Um,
pouring through the rules, trying to figure out how to do this thing. What mistakes did you make? And then we'll get into kind of what kind of kayak do you have now? Because you're not running the old quad yak anymore.
no, so I jumped up to a Johnny Boat Bass 100.
Okay.
And then from there, I jumped to a New Canoe Frontier 12. And that's what I actually took to South Carolina for that first one.
Okay.
And I couldn't even tell you what mistakes I made then. I didn't have the first clue what I was doing. That was it. I wouldn't say anything I did was a mistake. I just had no idea what I was doing. I
Okay.
showed up and he's like, all right, like, do you have a shaky head tied on? I'm like, a shaky what?
Yeah. Unless it's a chicken liver, folks. I have no
Yeah.
clue what you're talking about.
Yeah, or skipjack head. Like that's all I had to give me a big circle hook and a bloody chunk of skipjack. I was like, nope.
Oh,
I'm
you're
sure
like
it's in this
trial
bag of
by
stuff.
fire. At that
Yeah,
point,
and
you're just giving donations away.
he asked me, he's like, do you have a fluorocarbon leader tied on? I was like, fluorocarbon? What? I've heard of it, but no, I don't use it. I use monofilament. That's all I use for my leaders. It's like, well, you should tie a leader on. And so I go start trying to tie a leader, and it's just to show how little I knew. I pulled out a barrel swivel because in catfishing, I use a barrel swivel.
Well, that's what you know.
And I'm putting this barrel swivel on my spinning rod. He's like, what? No.
This is
And then
amazing.
crash course in how to tie an FG knot. So I spent probably an hour retying that FG knot over and over. And I could tie
During
like,
the tournament?
no, this is the
Pre-fishing
night of day one practice. Because we
Got
went
it.
down there for 4 days. Yeah. And the first night, we was up till probably midnight, just tying new stuff on, getting my rods situated. I had such a hodgepodge of different rods.
How'd you actually do?
I think I finished like 75th.
Out of?
120, 130.
That's pretty good for tying on the barrel swivel the night before. So you picked it up.
So I would have taken third in the big bass if I'd paid into it, but I didn't. Because I was like, I've already spent
why
so
would I
much
pay
money on
into
this
it, right?
trip. I'm sure as hell not going to catch anything close to the biggest. No reason to waste an extra, I think it's like $50, $100, something like that.
Okay.
Nope. I would have had the third one.
How much would you have won?
I want to say it's like $200 or $300.
Oh,
I heard the guy that got third got. I was like, man, well, lesson learned there.
What would you? You gotta tell us what you caught it on.
Oh,
what was it?
It was a Ned rig. Just
Okay.
slow dragging a Ned rig in, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet of water. And it was 21 3/4. Third bass I ever caught.
That's a big one. That's what, 6.5 pounds? Is that what that was at?
I didn't weigh it, but that thing was heavy. It was huge. That's actually I used the picture of it in my most recent video for the thumbnail. It's the one I was holding up.
Okay, but that's not your personal best, because recently you got your personal best. Is that correct?
Yeah, the 22-inch one.
All right, that was my personal best down at Gunnersville last year. For this guy right here, was a 22, 6 pounds 8 ounces. But I recently just upgraded. I told the world about it, so everyone's like, "Yeah, Darren, we know." You just got them telling the freaking world about it. And I'm still pumped about it. For Ohio, it was a 22.75.
You have been catching some hogs that
I'm on them, man.
Would not have expected to come out of Ohio. I'm from Ohio, by the way. I'm not from Tennessee.
Oh, where in Ohio?
Chillicothe, about an hour south of Columbus.
Yeah. Okay, well, 3 hours. I'm in like north. I'm over here in Canton area.
Okay, my wife is from Cleveland area.
There you go, fellow Buckeye. I knew
I was
it.
just up there on Lake Erie last month.
Yeah, for some reason this year, I really what's been catching them for me this year, and I put this in my recent video. It's coming out soon, and it's like an accessory video, but nonetheless, I upgraded my fish finder. I would not be catching these bass without side scan, because what I'm doing is throwing out my side scan, doing a structure scan, 60 to 100 feet on both sides of my kayak. And when I locate the structure, I get a little closer to it, dial it in, it becomes a lot more crisper of an image.
Yep.
And then I'm just fishing. And this is probably 10, 15 feet of water of stuff I never knew was down there. And these lakes I've been fishing for years. And typically, like most kayak anglers, we'll just go around and beat up the banks, right?
Yeah.
I recently did a poll and asked, do you use a fish finder? Over 50% of the people do not use fish finders. And if you don't want to use a fish finder, I'm not telling you you have to. I don't care. You fish, you do you, right? But I'm telling you, I
Have
would not have
clue how to
caught
use one.
these fish if it wasn't for a fish finder, because they're going to deeper water in the summer around here. And so I've tied on my swim jig, and I got down the pattern. I know the lake well enough. I mean, there's probably 8 or 9 lakes around here, but basically I figured out the pattern just for all of them. And so anytime I'm on the water, the swim jig has just been picking up absolute Ohio donkeys. I mean, July was stupid. All 5 of my top fish
Like all
were over
20.
21. All over 21.
Wow.
Which is just stupid around here. Stupid. And so that's been a lot of fun. It's been wild and crazy. It's definitely my best year. Last year, I was like, how in the world am I going to beat last year? And then this year happened. I'm like, holy cow, what's next year going to look like? So it's been a good year, but primarily 2 lures have been slaying it for me. I'm using a 1/2 ounce swim jig, and it's from what's it from? What's the tackle place called? I was just looking up last night because I'm running out, because I get them hooked up every once in a while and I have to break the line. All Terrain Tackle is the jig that I'm using.
I haven't heard of it.
And it just has a unique head on it, and it just swims through the water very, very well. It's almost like comes to a point. It's got 2 red eyes. Then I'm using the Rage Swimmer, one of 2 colors, the KVD Magic, right, 3.75 inches, or the Ghost Shad. And I put those on, put a little super glue on those bad boys, just pop, 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 and man, I feel like nothing but 19s and above will eat that thing. Now I'm getting somewhat less bites, but not a whole lot. So it's either that, or I'm throwing the stupid upside down bowling pin, Yamatanuki. And
I've seen it. I haven't tried that yet.
I know it's so funny because this thing looks so. I know it looks ridiculous, right? And I had a buddy who was like, "Hey, what you catch your PB on?" And he's like, "If you tell me the wacky worm, I'm going to unsubscribe from you." I was like, "It's not the wacky worm." I was like, "Yamatanuki." He's like, "User deleted," is what he wrote me back. That thing is it's so stupid.
What do you fish it on?
So I fish it on probably a medium heavy power fast action rod, 20-pound fluorocarbon, 5/0 hook for the 3.5 inch. It's a heavy, and some people say 4-inch. I mean 4/0 hook for it. I just wouldn't do it. I believe even the manufacturer says 4/0 hook. Guys, I believe you can follow their instructions, go for it. And I had people argue with me on YouTube before. I was like, don't use the 4/0. Use a freaking 5/0, folks, because that's a lot of plastic to move out of the way. And you want that gap to be as large as possible. So you can fish it in a variety of different ways. You can skip the stupid thing. You can pull it down structure. You can I fish it in the lily pads. I mean, it's really versatile. It skips under overhanging trees really well. And it has this like little flutterfall that it does. It's so dumb. But what has been killing it is I'm throwing it into these dead laydowns. So those trees that have been there for like 4 or 5 years. And typically I would throw my jig in there and kind of pop it through. But a lot of times I get the jig stuck. Half the time it was on the first couple casts. I have to go in, I ruin the hole, then I have to move on and come back. Yamatanuki is great because you throw it in there and it kind of does this flutter fall into the holes. And I slowly pop it. And that thing whips over the stick and its tail flies around. And then it kind of settles back into the next one. It doesn't get caught up. I would not
have expected the shape of that thing to do that.
So it just kind of does this going down, and it's heavy too. And it's, it's Yamamoto bait, so it's full of salt. So this thing falls pretty quick. And that's what I caught the 22.75 7-pound bass in Ohio on. And so these things they're just stupid. And I think they're so stupid. This is a reason that a lot of guys and girls won't fish them, which is great news for anybody who wants to listen to me, because it's right now, especially going to September, you got highly pressured waters, right? They've seen everything thousands of times, but
PTSD over
likely,
a crankbait.
but likely have not seen that stupid upside down bowling pin. And so I don't
Yeah.
know, it's just getting bit for me. So I'm telling you what, guys, if you have not tried it, try the 3.5. They have a 2.5. I don't use it. Too small. They just came out with the 4.25. Which is going to be a monster. I haven't got my hands on it. I want to. I'll do that in a hot second. But man, that stupid poop bait looking thing is just, if you're looking for a lure, like, hey, just a little something, little razzle dazzle. Swim jig, Yamatanuki, killing it for me. Oh man. So let's hop into the topic is, and we've kind of been dancing around it for a while. Kind of, if you were to first time fishing tournaments, kayak fishing tournaments. So were you ever hesitant in getting into? I was hesitant when I first started about getting into tournaments because I thought it was going to ruin it for me. What was your thoughts on it?
It wasn't so much I thought it was going to ruin it for me if I got into tournaments. I didn't know anything starting out. Didn't feel like it was going to be something I was going to be able to pick up or learn with any kind of quickness. And it's kind of perfect timing because, like I said, I was retiring from the Army at the time, and so went on retirement leave, and I had a few months of just, I got time to go spend on the water.
Yeah.
And yeah, between that and just once I got, hooked on it, I was just watching YouTube videos, texting my buddy Ron, going fishing with him, trying this, trying that. I was able to start piecing things together quicker and quicker.
Yeah. Tell me more about this retirement leave. It sounds amazing. Right,
Oh,
folks?
just for last 2 years in the Army, you don't take a day off, and then you get to take like 2 months of leave at the end.
Oh man, sounds the 2 years thing sucks, but the 2 months
Yes.
leave sounds amazing. My goodness.
Yeah.
I was planning on going fishing tomorrow morning, and I went out to get everything ready, and my battery's dead. The problem is the only way to open my truck right now is with that stupid clicker that electronically opens it because the lock, and there's only one on my truck. So I literally out there, I had to like break into my truck so I can open up the hood so I can recharge the battery, which is doing right now. So I'm not sure if I'm going to get out there tomorrow. But this is what I love about kayak fishing tournaments, right? They're CPR tournaments. And so a lot of people are used to, the catch them on a bass boat, put them in your live well, put them in the bag, show them off in front of, hundreds of people. And the problem with that is that there's a high mortality rate. Yeah. And so you put a lot of stress on those fish, and there's oxygen deprivation, there's high water temperatures, there's high ammonia, carbon dioxide, and the fish mortality rate on a lot of these conventional bass tournament circuits is really alarmingly high. And so if that's something you care about, and in my opinion, you should as a bass angler. I was watching a video, and my buddy, who's actually in here right now, he's in the comments. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to send you this video from Mikey Balls. I think he fishes down there in Gunnersville." And it was after the big bass splash, and he was out there and he was doing this video. It's like, guys, we got to do better, because he took a video of fishing Gunnersville, and he's looking out over the water, and there's like
fish floating,
just dead bass floating everywhere. And he's like, "That's a 6-pounder. That's a 5-pounder. That's a 4-pounder." And I was like, "Oh, that's brutal." And it's like
10, 15 years to grow one of them.
Yeah, it takes quite a bit of time. And so definitely don't want dead fish at the weigh-in scales, and more die due to the oxygen kind of debt and toxins in the bloodstream. It's just a lot of stress to put on the bass. And this is why I like it, right? Because in CPR tournaments, if you're new to it and haven't fished them before, catch, photo, release. So essentially you get a bass, and immediately you pull out your catch board. You got to have an approved measuring device, and every tournament's a little bit different. KBF, you got to have a Catch X, Catch Carbonate. And I think that is added the Yak Attack leaderboard recently. I think I read that. And so everyone's using the same type, and then you take a photo. It uploads to a tournament management system, a TMS, and then it automatically calls your fish for you. And so it's your top 5 bass a lot of times, or depending on the tournament it is. And so
I didn't know that at the beginning. I stressed about that. I would hold on to fish because I didn't know that it would automatically. And so I also didn't know how to go in and I didn't really know how to go in and do anything inside of Fishing Chaos. I was just afraid that once I uploaded 5, that was it. And if I caught something bigger later on, I was just screwed.
Oh, so you're sitting there catching fish. You're trying to make the decision in the moment whether or not you take a photo of it.
Well, I'd take the photo.
But you wouldn't upload it.
I wouldn't upload until the very end.
Oh, I
would go through and star, the 5 fish that I was going to use. I didn't know that until we were at the boat ramp loading up, and I told my buddy we're on that, and he's like, no, it automatically calls those for you.
Would have been nice to know last night at midnight when I was tying my FG knot, folks.
Right.
I mean, these are all things no one knows if you've never done it before. It's part of the podcast, right? Let's talk about this a little bit. But there's actually a lot of rules, and I think that's what makes a lot of the tournament, a little bit overwhelming for people, because they'll get into it and like, okay, I'm just doing this tournament, and I understand the idea of, I got to take a photo of bass, great, and then I upload it, and then they get like a DQ. Their fish gets DQ'd or something. They're like, oh, raw. They flip the tables over. They're pissed off. Why? And they're like, why? And then the why is because you never read the rules, my friend. Read them a couple times.
So I was guilty of that. My 3rd tournament. So 2 tournaments later, I fished Murray, came home, fished the season opener for a local tournament. And then we got to the 2nd tournament of that local tournament series. And I misunderstood one of the rules about having the contrasting sticker on the lip of your board.
Okay, and I didn't explain that for everyone if they're not familiar.
So on the where you butt the nose of the fish up against the lip of the board, some tournament series require you to have some kind of, they word it as a contrasting sticker or mark, just for them the judge to better tell that fish's nose actually is up against the lip of the board.
Yep.
And the way they had worded it in the captain's briefing, I thought they were just saying that it had to be a catch board and there had to be a logo or sticker or something visible showing it, something to that effect,
like on the board somewhere.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I have a catch board. It says catch right there. I'm good. And then I went out and hour left in the tournament, I was in first place.
Oh no.
And I get a call from the judge.
Oh no.
Like, we have to disqualify all of your fish. He's like, man, you've been out there killing it today.
You were in first.
But I have a screenshot of where, because I don't check the result, the standings until like the last.
Oh, you don't stress yourself out. You just fish.
Yeah, I try to. I'm already stressing myself out enough. I don't need to see what the monsters other people. I don't need to see Darren over here catching 5 20-inch plus fish. I'm over here, struggling to get one 13-inch fish. But yeah, so I wait to the end of the day, and that's where I, uploaded, check. I'm like, I'm in first place. I text my wife. I was like, I might screw around and win this damn thing. And then it wasn't 20 minutes later, the judge called me. He's like, man, I'm sorry. He's like, you're killing it. He's like, but I have to disqualify him. He's like, you don't have the contrasting mark.
Brutal.
I was butthurt for a minute. I showed up to the check-in afterwards. Just,
Would you have won it?
Yeah.
Oh, you would have won it.
Yeah, the guy that did end up winning it, I had him beat by, I think, 2 inches.
Oh, that's a beating as well, because usually you don't win those things by inches. You win them by quarters and halves of inches. Yeah. How much money did you lose on that one?
500 maybe.
Okay, at least it wasn't. It wasn't.
Yeah, it was just the local one, but at the same time, I did walk away from it as this is a positive, because it's like.
No,
wait a minute.
Not positive. It's $1,000 you lost.
Well, thank you.
I mean, sorry. Let's learn from the experience.
It was an expensive lesson to learn.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
I did walk away from it like, okay, I can do this. I need to read the rules a little bit more, but I can do this.
Oh, I bet you never read the rules like you did that night.
I read them now. I watched that captain's briefing. I rewatch it. I rewind some places. I clarify, check. Yes. Yeah. I'm even afraid to show up to a different tournament series with anything from another tournament. Like if I show up to a KBF tournament, there's some anxiety inside about having something from Bassmaster on there or vice versa. I want to strip it clean.
Yeah. And you really gotta. I read them every once in a while just for fun. I say, what is? Oh, this has actually changed. It changes every once
Yeah.
in a while. They added the
Yeah.
Yak Attack leaderboard that wasn't always there.
Yeah.
When it's
There's also some rules about because where I'm at, I'm right on the state line between Kentucky and Tennessee.
okay.
And there are some places on Kentucky Lake and Lake Barkley where there are reciprocal waters where
Right.
you can launch. I think you have to like launch on the Tennessee side, and then you can go up into Kentucky, and up so far is considered reciprocal waters. And so anything you catch there, you can use for a Tennessee tournament.
Okay. Did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is yeah, you got to know the rules. They're laid out, especially KBF. Chad's been doing this for a long time. And so if you read a rule, it always makes you laugh when I read these rules. I'm like, oh, you created that rule for a reason,
Yeah, somebody
meaning
did
that there
that.
was somebody at some time that
Yep.
did that ridiculous thing you have a rule about, and that's why there's a rule. And I just sit there and I was like, I just want to call Chad and ask him the story about it. I want to ask him the story about that because some of these things are like, oh, I would never do that. That's ridiculous, but there's
Yeah.
a rule and it's there for a reason. I was finishing up I was with my team. We were finishing up the knucklehead tournament last year, and Chad and I were fishing in the same spots. And afterwards he came up and he's like, hey guys, I got bad news for you. And I was like, what? I was like, crap, this is like my worst nightmare, right? Is the tournament director comes up to you and says, hey, we have a
Both of
problem.
your fish are
I'm gonna have to
disqualified.
DQ. We're gonna DQ. We have to DQ your last fish because Jack McRoberts, who we'll talk about in just a moment, was on my team, and he came in with a clutch 19-incher when we needed an 18 to win it in like the last 20 minutes. And so that was stressful. And
Yeah.
a lot of pressure on you, Jack, but he came through, and he came up to us like, hey, you're not allowed catching the same fish during the same tournament.
I didn't know that either till recently.
And so I basically go white, and we all flip out our phones. Chad walks away, and we're flipping through, and he's already back at his car. And we're like, it's not the same. And he just starts laughing. He knew it wasn't the freaking same. I thought he was just joking about that rule. He just made up a rule,
Yeah.
only to find out later that's actually a rule, right? If you fish multiple day events, the same fish may not be entered more than once, even though it's
Mhm.
caught on separate days. And so I had this happen to me again. Actually happened to me. It happened early on in the season. I'm fishing the month-long challenge series for the state of
Mhm.
Ohio, and I'm on them again. It's early. It's cold. I mean, like freaking cold. And there's this spot, and I was picking them up, and I caught this, I think it was 20-incher, and I caught him. So I'll go back the next day, right? If there's one, there's got to be two. The stupid thing hits again. I didn't realize
You
it.
didn't learn the first time?
Oh yeah, right. It literally hits the same lure in the same spot for the
Yeah.
second day. Like, you stupid bass. You guys are really stupid. Nonetheless, he hits it, and I posted. I didn't know it was the same fish. I'm fishing on 2 separate days. It doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
And they actually DQ'd because they have technology now that they can read it and think, oh, and here's the markings, and they can really pick up with a degree of accuracy if this was the same fish that you caught yesterday, or if you
Mhm.
caught it 28 days ago. If you're fishing a month-long tournament, can't count the same fish twice.
Mhm.
So it's that's an interesting little rule and a
Yeah.
heartbreaker if you find out, right? So this is
Yeah.
why if you're in a tournament, keep fishing if you catch one, and you're winning. Don't give up because it's the big one. Keep catching because you never know. You just never know, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to tell sometimes. So that one's an interesting rule. Some other things that I do and I've learned along the way is print off a few spare identifiers, and I keep
Yep.
them in a baggie. This happened at the knucklehead on the second day. For
Mhm.
whatever reason, my plastic little holder that holds my identifier, it cracked. Must have been cold that morning. It was October,
Mhm.
and
Got
it
water in
was
there?
raining. Water got in it, and it was bleeding my
Yeah.
identifier numbers because I put them on there with Sharpies. And so you could barely make them out, but you could still make them out. And I was like, holy crap, I would be a lot of trouble right now. And so now I carry spare identifiers that are in a plastic baggie just for whatever reason.
And a Sharpie. I keep a Sharpie in my backpack and a Sharpie in my vest.
There you go. So if you're not doing this and you're fishing for money, maybe a good idea, because also what happens on the catch, I have a Catch X and I have the catch holder, and those are put on with
Yep.
like a Velcro, really hard Velcro.
It's like it's like that plastic.
Yeah, where it locks
Right.
in.
It's not like the fuzzy Velcro.
No, it's not. But every once in a while, every time I go out in the water, I'm pushing that down in because it pops out a little bit on the corners. And so if that thing pops in and you lose it, you don't want to be screwed. So I always like to keep a spare identifier. Also, I believe something that Chad recommends is have your tournament director sell in your contacts in case you need to contact them. It's not something you need to get a hold of them. You can't.
You got no service.
Yeah, no, whatever it is, right? And you just can't get a hold of them. So have that. Test your tournament login dashboard. This is something I do right away. A lot of these tournaments now you have to like log in on your phone before you get started, and then test it. Just make sure you can log in. Make sure the dashboard is correct right out of the gate. You're not having any glitches, because you don't want to catch that monster, right? Be goofing around with your phone. You have to restart your phone, update your phone, whatever it is, update the latest update for Fishing Chaos or whatever that may be. Another thing that people miss is the approved measuring board. And we talked about this. But if you use anything than the approved measuring boards, you could be DQ'd. You will be DQ'd. You can't use hog troughs and so forth. So do you know the reason behind that?
I had heard about people making illegal modifications to be able to make your fish longer and winning things. And
yeah, I actually did a video on this. Top 5 ways people cheat at tournament. And the reason I did it is not to crap on the sport. I wanted people to be aware so they can keep an eye out and be like, oh, I recognize that.
I
recognize what that person's doing. Right. And so why they're, hog troughs and a lot of these, like, people were cutting them and then melting them back together and then putting their bass, the fat part, over the cut part, so you wouldn't be able to see it's cut. And so you get an extra an inch, because all you're seeing is the front of the board and the tail. Also on some of those, the hog trough, I believe, was the main culprit. People were like, they were thin.
Push
them down, and it would
bend and it bring the ends up.
You get an extra 1/4 inch out of that. And when you win tournaments by 1/4 of an inch, that's a big deal. And so there's actually a rule at KBF where it could do a slight bend by the weight of the fish, but you can't put extra pressure on it if they catch you doing that. No, you're in trouble. Something I always do is I carry a phone charger and always have an auxiliary battery. I have a couple of them because I run GoPros off my front and the back. But I don't know about you, but you ever had that moment where, like, for whatever reason, it doesn't happen very often, but your phone would just go through a straight burn of the battery? I mean, for whatever reason, like, what the crap? The thing was 90, now it's 10. That's not something you want happening on tournament day. And so have a backup battery. Make sure you have the cord with you in your backpack and a plastic baggie.
I got a little USB port to plug a charger into in case I run into that.
And a lot of kayaks, people modded them out now. Their battery boxes have, USBs and stuff like that. But if you're like bare bones, just getting into it, might be something you might want to consider having on board. Because trust me, I was out with somebody once and they came over. I was on the shad were busting and I found them. And before I knew it, there was literally like 12 kayakers. I don't know, 12, but there was like 6 or 7. My buddy, Illuminathan, who's in the comments right now, he was fishing with me, and literally we were on them. Like, we were just pulling them out. And there was a tournament that day. And before we know it, all these kayakers or boats were like 100 feet out. And then, you look down, catch a fish or two, and they're like 75 feet. It's like that cat. When you look at it, it stops, but you look away, they get a little bit closer, and you stop. So then everybody wants to have a conversation with you. Everyone's super friendly once you're pulling in bass, one after another. But he came up to me and was like, yeah, my battery did a straight burn, and I've been catching them on the chatterbait, like 18s and 19s. I was in third, and I was like, I feel bad for you. Should have had your phone charger and battery. So anyways, remember that. This is something else, at least for me. So I noticed this recently, especially if you use the catch whatever catch sells, and they have the plastic little, I don't know, it looks like a Ziploc type of thing.
Yeah,
And you stick it in and you
identifier holder.
identifier holder. Yeah. But the problem is, I don't know if you've had problems with this on sunny days. If you
The
catch
glare.
that at the wrong glare,
Yep.
you find out after you released your fish, you're screwed. And so
Actually, for that reason right there, take multiple photos, kind of change your angle. Cause I did get a call from a KBF judge one time for some fish that I had submitted. And they're like, hey, like the glare is kind of, I don't think I'm gonna be able to accept this fish. Do you take, different photos of it? And luckily I had taken some different ones that didn't have as much of a glare and was able to save that fish for me.
yeah, it's and so what I'll do, I'll catch the bass, and typically what I do if it's on the large side, like typically north of 19s, I will put on the lip grabber. Here's my I'll just walk you through my literally the process I go through. Bass caught, great. I know it's a big one, fantastic. Pull the hook out, take my lip grabber, put it on the bass, stick it my net on the side where it's still sitting in the water, and so then I'll place it into the water so you can still get oxygen running through his gills. Then I'll get my camera ready, pull it out of my Rode, and set the phone on my seat. So I'm not goofing with it while I'm holding the bass down, because usually that's when oh my goodness, that's when they jump and they freaking stab you with their, look at that. Ow. And it hurts for like 3 days. That's the 2021 that got me.
Wow.
Piece of crap. But nonetheless, that's because I was goofing around with my freaking phone trying to bring up the app, and it was on like 3 other apps. So I had to delete out of those. Then I'll put it down, put my hand, of course, over it. And we'll talk about the no touch zone here in a little bit. And a lot of the nuances that people, Chad told me, like people constantly tell me these couple things about it. And so people don't understand a few of the no touch zone rules. We'll talk about that. So I get the right photo, put them on the lip grabber, put them back in the net, and then I'll check the photo, and I'll check a couple things. Real quick glance. Okay, got to make sure that lip's touching, make sure the mouth is closed.
Yep.
Open a little bit. You won't get the fish DQ'd, but they will decrease it a lot of times. Yeah, dock you a quarter inch or a half inch if it's like, freaking wide open. Judge's discretion. Make sure my hand is in the right placement. Typically it is if it's anywhere in the middle of the fish. And then make sure, of course, it's always, I want to get that tail over that little piece of line so you can get the next quarter. And that's if all 3 of those things are in, good, let the fish go, and then you can continue fishing. But it's a system. Because we've all had, have you ever had bass jump off your board into the water?
No, I haven't had any jump actually into the water on me, but I have had them come up off the board, and I've had to fling my feet out and catch them and stop them and kind of boot them back into just keep redirecting them to the middle till they get tired.
It's always a good time when those things go freaking wild.
Especially the smallmouth, because they just, like somebody slapped them. They just flopping around angry.
Oh, so funny. So yeah, for me, it's always the like 15 to 17s that go buck wild. They have all the energy. A lot of times,
big ones are just too heavy. It's like,
it's
exhausting.
Here's the problem with the fat ones. You get a fat one on there, they'll pretend like they're not going to jump. And you're like, oh, this guy's just lazy. He's like, I've been here before. This is my 7th catch board this year. Not a big deal. I know you're going to throw me back in. You're a kayak angler. You guys practice CPR. But what I found is every once in a while, the amount of power those things have,
you'll feel them like tense up.
Yeah, you feel it right before they jump, and you got to push down because you know when they're about to do it. But they can get some lift. So I take every single one of my photos down in the bottom of my kayak sideways. I don't put them up on my gunnels.
Oh,
I know a lot of people do. I don't. I just had way too many fish jump off left, right, and so I turn it sideways, put it down on the bottom, put my net on the side. Here, I'll show a photo of how I do it. Nonetheless, so they'll actually jump over the side of my kayak. We're talking a good 7-8 inches. They always go into my net. I've only had it a couple times, but it's the big ones you got to watch out for. You think they're not going to do it, but when they do,
they do it, they
can get 8 or 9 inches, and they're over the side. And holy crap, Chad told me a story once. He saw a guy. he was goofing around with the photo. So typically what I also do is I take a quick photo. You know, a lot of times you get it on there, you're trying to get the perfect. I just take a quick photo right away.
Mm-hmm.
I call it my safety photo. Click. And then I'll go in and goof around with it as it's trying to jump out of the kayak. But yeah, that's the process, and it's a little wild. It's a little wild and crazy.
I had to do something like that back in April at the KBF National Championship.
Okay.
I had just caught, I think it was maybe like a 17-inch smallmouth.
All right.
And right as I'm getting the hook out of this thing's mouth, I haven't got it measured yet, and I'm not letting this thing go. My son's school called me. And I'm a state away. Like, I got to answer this.
Good dad, bass angler.
Right.
Good dad, kayak angler.
Yeah, and it's I put my earbuds in and answered it, and it was one of his teachers calling to tell me that they were having some trouble that I needed to talk to him about.
I'm having trouble too. I got a freaking 17-ounce smallmouth trying to take a photo.
Well, so what I did is I just put it in my net and then just kind of hung it in the water. And then every time it'd start to get froggy, I'd pick him up out a little bit. Okay, settle down, sit down, just breathe. We're going to get through this. I was probably on there for 5 minutes, just trying to get through. Like, okay, I'm going to talk to him. We'll sort that out. And then I got my fish measured and got the picture.
There you go. And I'm sure he was happy to be flying away. As long as they're chilling out in the water, they're fine. I mean, the timing on that's kind of funny. Other things. So a lot of times I'll notice this, that people leave those extra spaces. So you got to use the right identifier card. You can print them off on KB. I'm talking KBF. A lot of people will write on their hands. Disqualified.
Didn't know that either.
Yep, you get in trouble. Don't learn that one. Don't write it on your hands.
Get disqualified.
Yep. Also, a lot of people will they'll take the identifier card. They'll get the card right, and then they'll place that on top of the fish. Yeah, put the card on the fish. Take the photo.
I'd be too nervous to do that.
I don't know.
Flop and fling my identifier right off in the water.
Happens, whatever. Often, but all those extra spaces, what I'll do is I'll fill that in. If I have extra spaces after I fish probably 3 or 4 or 5 tournaments at a time, why not, right? And so if I have 3 or 4 extra spaces, I'll just take my most important tournaments, the one where there's money on or the most money on, and I'll just repeat that code in all the extra spaces. So if there is a glare, typically there's a glare on one corner or box, and I can pick it up if it's down caddy corner on it. And I actually have 2 identifiers, and then I put it again on the second one. And so it helps with my glare issue. Didn't cost me that much, and it's better than, getting a fish DQ'd. So something to think about if you guys are out there. Kind of redundancies, if you like that. How many times have you dropped your catch board in the water?
None, actually.
None. I think mine.
Now, when I was catfishing, all the time. Luckily, the ones that we used were whatever they're made of floated.
Oh, they floated.
Because I had to go chasing mine down the river one time.
Well, with the Catch X, those are the aluminum ones.
Yeah,
those things are going straight to the bottom. That's an $80. Yeah, it's an $80 sacrifice to the fish gods. And so, always tether that bad boy. Tether your phone, Rogue phone tethers, because it's just a matter of time before you fumble that thing or you.
A lot of times I bring a spare with me.
A spare
catch board, because I have my original,
that's next level.
The original yellow carbonate one. Since then, I think it's the Catch X, the aluminum one. Yeah. I have a blue one that I use now. That's my main one, and I usually keep the yellow one in the back in case something does happen like that. Because
like you don't tether it down.
I do most of the time. Right now, I'm like in between tethers. That's the thing.
You're
Sounds
in trouble.
silly, but
this is going to be the moment you drop your $80 Catch X. You know it. You're like, I'm only going to do it for a week or two. That's going to be the week or two.
I've lost some fishing rods in the water, though, that at least catfishing, I do try to use tethers on them.
Okay. Yeah, if you get a big girl, they'll rip it right out of your.
Well, not even that. Just if do what's called dragging your baits, where you literally put dragging sinkers on, you just drag them across the
Oh, they get caught
bottom.
up on crap.
And they get caught up on something. If you're not watching, I have it on video where I'm just kind of chugging along half mile an hour, and you can just watch the rod just bend, 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 bend. All of a sudden, snap! It's sinking before I can
Gone.
get to it. Like $200 rod setup.
That's good.
Now that
Debo,
happened.
you follow Debo at all?
Uh,
Debo's he has a channel, 160,000. I've had him on the show here, but he just flipped his kayak and lost about $2,000 in combos that he wasn't
gosh,
able to
I might have seen that
recover.
video.
Oh, I
That
felt so
sounds
bad for
familiar.
him. I haven't had a chance to talk to him.
Yeah.
He was against kayak fishing for a long time anyways. Then he got a kayak and then he just flipped it and lost
Dumped
half
all
his
the
crap.
stuff.
Dumped all the stuff.
Oh, that'd be terrible. My
It
wife
would
might
be.
get mad about that. She's pretty understanding about most things with the kayak fishing, but
Yeah.
if I dumped everything in the water, I'd be mad.
Yep. Yeah. Especially, and of course, it won't be the 4 or 5 feet of water. It'd be the 10, 15
Mhm.
feet of water. And you're just like,
I did
done.
drop a rod in the water one time this past December. I dropped my Duckett spinning rod in the water that I just got, and I spent an hour with I took a wobblehead jig,
Okay.
just bare, nothing on it. I spent an hour where I knew I had dropped it, casting it and just slowly dragging it, feeling every little tick, 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 tick. It took an hour. I caught the very end of the handle, the foam, like
Oh,
just
yeah.
the very tip of it. The hook caught the foam, and I got that
Oh,
rod back.
wow.
I still haven't used it today.
That's impressive. I've never
Yeah.
lost a rod. Let me know if you're listening in the comments. What is the most expensive thing that you have sacrificed to the water? For me, it was a GoPro. Freaking GoPro. I still know where it's at. It's sitting in 22 feet of water.
I
So
dropped
it
a
was
cheap one.
huh?
The Akasa. I dropped my Akaso, the cheaper one. in
Oh,
the
there you
water.
go.
I
How'd you
lost
drop
that
the
one.
Mine ripped off the front of my bow. I got caught on a wire and ripped off, and it went in 20 feet of
Ooh.
water, so it was unsalvageable. Couldn't
It-
get it. I tried magnet fishing for it. Not a chance. Not a chance.
I didn't know how to, or I didn't know that you could even at the time hook up an external power source. And so what I was doing at the time was
Changing all
calling
your
up the
batteries
front of
out?
the kayak, and every hour, 45 minutes or so, swapping out the batteries. Like, this is bullshit. I gotta find a better way to do this. And then that happened. And it was like 20 minutes in, and I'm like, for a minute, I was just mad. And I was like, okay, we'll be mad later. I got to figure this out because today's going to be the day. And it did happen to be the day that I caught my, at the time, new PB. What am I going to do? I had some zip ties with me. I had my Apple Watch with me. I zip
Uh-huh.
tied my phone up there to that curtain rod mount that I told you about earlier.
Yep.
And I had my watch set to where I could just hit record on there, and it would start recording on my iPhone.
Yeah,
As I got a picture
with
of
that.
the catfish that I caught.
How many batteries did you have?
I carried like 5 or 6 with me.
The moment you
hated it.
realized,
I
when was
hated
that
it.
moment that you realized one power bank and a cord where you
Oh, I
were
went
like,
home. I was
"What
like, I
have
just
I
got
been
on
doing?"
YouTube, and I was like, I gotta find. There's got to be a better way than this.
Oh,
And
gosh.
it didn't take much Googling and YouTubing to find like, oh, you can just get these power banks and a cord and
Yeah.
run that thing all day long.
My gosh, so funny. That's one of my first videos, actually, years and years ago. I say it like it's a long time ago. It might have been 2.5 years ago. Did one of those videos on it. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. Other rules that are interesting. One, watch your upload speed. Not a lot of people will deal with this, but a really weak signal will drain your battery trying to upload a bass. So if you're like,
Mhm.
have weak signal, hit the upload button and shove it back in your, PFD, and find out, an hour later when you catch your next one that it never actually uploaded, but it's been trying. That could burn your
Mhm.
battery. So keep that.
Yeah. You
Something
can also
I
go
learned.
in. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, this is good.
Oh, just you can go into the at least on the iPhone to the cellular settings, and you can turn everything's access to the network off to where it's not using your Wi-Fi or your internet.
There you go. Something I got a bass DQ'd because that wasn't a big one. Lucky you learn. This is why early on, like in the month-long tournaments, I will post, if I catch a 12-inch bass, I'll post it just because I want to make sure I didn't do something weird with my phone, right? Where I turned off the data or whatnot. and just make sure everything's working correctly. And I've actually had that work to my favor because one of them was DQ'd and it was a 12-inch. I was like, yeah, that's not going to win anything. I just did it just to get into the rhythm of doing it. And the EXIF data was off. I don't know how I could turn it off. I didn't mean to turn it off. Whatever it was, the judge was like, hey, you go to here and turn it back on. And I did. And I was like, why in the world did it turn off? And so not a lesson you want to learn on a fish of a lifetime in a tournament. So make sure if you goof around with a new phone, got a new phone right before you started, your kids play with your phone, something to check on. Just saying. I know there's a lot of things to think about, but you don't want to learn. I'm sharing all these because you don't want to learn these lessons, and it costs you $1,000, right? Like someone I know. That's a painful experience there. Illuminathan says that's rough. I have tethers in all my rod holders now. All right, right on. Low Life Angler said I lost the Abu Garcia Veritas and Abu Garcia 7.1 this year. Illuminathan's my buddy. I fish with him around here, and he lost a rod last year. I was like, hey, where'd you lose that at? I'm gonna go find it because he has really nice gear. He has really nice rods and really nice setups. Scott Hanneman said I lost pliers, sunglasses, and a cheap measuring board. Hey, if you're gonna lose stuff, hope it's cheap.
That Lake Murray tournament, first one, it was pouring rain, and I had a bilge pump with me because the drainage for the F12s wasn't that great for the scupper plugs. So I always kept a bilge pump with me, and it was pouring rain. So I'd periodically stop and like bilge pump the water out of the deck of my kayak. And I was leaning over too far and my sunglasses slipped off my hat into the water. And I just like blindly took the bilge pump and slung it down the water to where the handle of it at the same time extended out and blindly sweeped it through the water. I got my sunglasses back.
What's up, Go Gadget Arms? What's going on? I've had that happen with my sunglasses. Somehow they flipped off. I actually got it on camera. I actually did a video on it. And
I think I watched that.
It went well. Yeah. I flipped out my leverage net and did a big, deep sweep. And I was like, hey, got him. So it's pretty nice when you have nice pairs of sunglasses. Both in, let me see here. We got a couple comments over here. Oh, yeah. Illuminathan said that was over $1,000 combo that he lost. That's painful, man.
That hurts.
Painful. What else we got here? Oh, Nathan also said sometimes that EXIF data will turn off after an update on your iPhone. So not something you want to do the night before is update your iPhone and not check that. So just some things to think about. This is good. This is something I didn't know until the knucklehead, because I don't fish a lot of like 1 or 2 day tournaments. I usually do the month-long tournaments, so I didn't have to think about this particular rule. But staging your kayak is actually allowed in the immediate area, meaning if there's 6, 7, 8 people getting at the same spot, you can get there early, put your kayak in, and just kind of drift or anchor down, and in that immediate area.
Places, that is crucial. Like Lake Murray, specifically, there's like 3 public launch ramps on that lake total.
Oh, so busy.
And so literally I went there to the Bassmaster one this past February, and I think there was like 260 people at that one, split between the 3 ramps. There were literally people camped out at the boat ramp at midnight to launch.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then I got up, I thought I got an Airbnb like 2 minutes down the road, got up early, like launch wasn't till I don't know, 5:36, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm getting there at the boat ramp at like 4 a.m. thinking, I'm ahead of the curve. I'm good. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. I need to run to the gas station real quick. I forgot to grab myself a Monster. And so I text my friend Ron. I'm like, hey, I got to run, get a Monster real quick. Do you need anything? What's the boat ramp look like? He's like, dude,
no, you don't.
You need to get here. This place is packed. And I pull up and it was a hot mess.
How many?
I couldn't even count how many.
Really? That many?
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be unreasonable to say it was 100 people at that ramp.
Wow.
And the parking lot only has maybe 10 spots.
What in the world?
It's a tiny bit. Now, to be fair, there is another boat ramp 400 feet down the road on the other side because it's like a little narrow bridge that you can't
Yeah.
go under. And there's a ramp on this side with this tiny parking lot, and then there's a ramp on the other side that's got a much larger parking lot. So that's what I ended up having to do that day was I launched, had my buddy Ron hang on to my kayak, and then I went and parked at the other parking lot and then walked back down.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's wild.
hot mess.
I mean, Gunnersville has a boat ramp every 30 feet. It feels like. So,
Yeah,
you were
nice.
actually fishing Wheeler this past year. How'd that go?
I loved Wheeler.
See, it's never been a lake that I fished. Now I'm gonna have to figure it
I
out because the knucklehead this year is on
yeah.
two different lakes. You got to fish Gunnersville one day and Wheeler the next.
I'm not crazy about Gunnersville.
Really?
Yeah, it's just because I don't have that much experience with that much grass. Like I can fish grass, but Gunnersville grass is a whole different beast. Like it's not. There's more grass than there is water in some places.
Yeah.
But Wheeler, I feel like Wheeler sets up much more like just a typical Tennessee River reservoir.
Okay.
You have some grass here, you have your rock here, you have some sand, dirt here, you have down timber here, creeks, points, just all your typical structure and cover that you'd fish. Anything I would find here, at Kentucky Lake, I felt like I was fishing Kentucky Lake.
Yeah.
When I was fishing there. It was great. I mean, the wind was crazy. It was cold.
Oh, it's like Ohio. It's perfect.
Yeah, right.
Love it.
It'll be 80 tomorrow.
Yeah, there you go. I love it when I go places and I think I was at Knucklehead last year and everyone's like, "Oh, it's rainy, it's cold." I was like, "Yeah, it sounds like Monday, where I'm from."
I prefer the cold weather for fishing.
Okay.
I would much rather go fishing in January than July.
All right. There you go.
Yeah, because you can dress for it. You can. I feel like I can control my body temperature and comfort level way better in the winter. Just learning to dress right versus in the summer. I mean, you can only get so naked.
Yeah. We'll top into some the final countdown of some of these rules that you may not know if you're thinking about getting to kayak fishing tournaments, at least for KBF. And of course, always check your rules because every kayak fishing tournament has different rules. But these are the ones I'm typically involved in, is typically around KBF and those found on Fishing Chaos. And so you got know your pre-fishing rules. There are some rules around pre-fishing, so make sure you got those dialed in. So for those who don't understand, pre-fishing is if you're fishing that same body of water, sometimes there's limitations on how many days you can fish it prior, right?
Yep.
And so just make sure you know those so you don't get caught because you will be DQ'd from the event. This is interesting. Resident only or community ponds are not eligible for KBF. That makes sense to me. But community neighborhood lakes that provide public access are actually off limits to KBF competition, regardless of whether or not they allow public access. So that's interesting because you would think that would be
behind that is
publicly accessible waters. That's the competition area. However, not publicly accessible waters that are community neighborhood lakes. Yeah, there's got to be a story there.
Yeah.
Must be someone just pulling out donkey after donkey after donkey on this one lake that one kayak can get on or something. Right. I don't know. I'll have to ask Chad when I have him on. But like you said, if there's a rule, there's a reason. So this one's interesting. So a competitor actually must access the water from a competitor must. I'm trying to figure how to say this. So you can't access off-limit areas from eligible water. So if you're in eligible water, so it's kind of like you can't cast into or obtain access to off-limit areas from eligible water. So if you got like posted restricted spawning areas or other refugees, you're sitting in eligible water and you cast into it and you get caught doing it, you could get in trouble there. That makes sense to me. So what are some other ones? So competitors may launch from any public access directly into eligible water, but crossing restricted property to reach another eligible water is actually not permitted. So if you happen to know this honey hole, you're like, hey, I entered public access, but you crossed over non-public access to reach another area that's eligible, uh,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to get to that from a different way. You can't cross over ineligible water. So that was interesting. I mean, there's so many rules here, right?
There's a time frame for when you're not allowed to take any kind of like guided trips on a body of
Yeah,
water as part of like your pre-fishing research. I
yep.
can't remember what the cutoffs are, but I want to say it's like a month or
It's
two or
like a
something.
month. Yeah, it's like a
Yeah,
full month beforehand. So yeah, this is so. I mean, needless to say, we talked about a lot of rules, but we left a lot out. So if you're gonna, and I think the moral of the story here is one, I hope you learned something. Two, I hope that if you do get into this, I'm having a ton of fun. It's a blast. I
definitely.
love going out, and a lot of times my only competition is me. I'll get out there. And I'm like, "Hey, how was your morning?" It's like, great. I upgraded, a half inch on my board. Um, and so it's just fun to be able to see. And it's one thing tournament fishing did for me is I started, content creating. I was like, am I any good? I think, I catch photos and everyone thinks you're a great angler, but if you're a great editor, you can be a great angler, type of thing. But am I actually competitive? And it wasn't until I started entering tournaments I realized, oh yeah, I actually, in comparison, for the most part, I'm a constant learner. I I can catch fast. I can catch big
I do
bass.
feel like that has contributed to shortening that learning curve,
Yeah.
is doing it in the tournament scene, because it's just, it's a kind of like a pressure cooker, just dials everything up and happens faster.
Yeah. So this is interesting. We talked about the no touch zone. I got a photo for you. So this is what if and for those of you listening in, essentially you can't touch like the eyeballs and the mouth, right? So if you're touching that, it's going to be DQ. You're in trouble. Well, this is where a lot of people get it misunderstood. People think that if you put your hand over the gill plate, that it gets DQ'd. That's not true. It's only if you put any part of your
Yeah.
hand or finger inside of the gill flap, that's when it'll be DQ'd. And so you can put your hand over the gill, flap to hold it down. If you like putting your hands out, spreading your
Now,
fingers out to get more.
is that rule just to protect the health of the fish, or is there a? 'Cause I don't see how that would help you, having your hand up under the gill plate,
No, I think it's protect the. It
protect
wouldn't
the
help
fish.
you. Yeah, it's
Okay,
you don't protect the
but it
gills
makes
of the
sense.
fish. Yep. So that makes sense. And then you can't have your hand anywhere behind the caudal peduncle. And so that's the base of the top fin and bottom fin toward the back of the fish.
Okay.
Anywhere along the tail, it's going to get that fish DQ'd. So you really have a lot of leeway. So to stick your hand right in the middle of that fish, and that's where it's actually the rules stay. You got to put it to the middle as you possibly can,
Yeah.
and don't mess with the front, don't mess with the back, and you should be good to go there. So
Yeah. I use the dorsal fin to kind of make sure that my hand stays there, because anytime I go to put my hand on it, first thing I do is I try to sweep that dorsal fin down so he doesn't stick me.
yeah, yeah, it's I get stuck all the freaking time. Oh, and it hurts for like days. It's almost like it's like a
Yeah.
poison tip arrow or something. Oh man, we're coming up at 110. I want to finish off here. I want to share my screen and talk about the knucklehead. We're in month 4. So we're putting our 4th teammates on the board here. So walk us through how that's gone for you as I bring up these tournament dashboards.
Been awesome. These guys, heck, they're way better than me, honestly. Uh, Last month's winner is a 14-year-old kid,
Whoa, come on now.
and and he put up well over 100 inches. I think it was
All
like
right,
something like 106.
let's check this out. All right. There we go. Team Kayak Angler, 319 fish. So let's take a look at your last 4 months. So you got Ron
Mm.
Himmelhaver from Tennessee, over
Yeah,
100 inches.
that's my buddy that got me into this.
Oh, there you go. The kayak fisherman guy.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean the
catfishing.
catfishing guy. All right, right on.
Yep.
So that's respectable. Then freaking June, 108.25. That's a monster.
Yeah.
Is that's pretty good anywhere. Joe, do you know him at all?
Nope, never met him.
Awesome.
Just
Charlie
talked to him on
Sanders,
Instagram.
106 point.
That's the 14-year-old.
Oh, okay. Right on.
Yeah.
Oh, 23.25. Dang. All 20s and 21 and a 23.25.
Yeah, that's
And those
why
are
when
tough.
I post up the winner that month, I was like, "You ever met a 14-year-old hammer? Because y'all are about to."
Yeah, you're about to. I love it. And then Brian Levac is
Yeah,
currently
he
in
looks
first
like
right now.
he's
But
poised to take it.
well, I don't know about that. You got a lot of month left, and this guy's on his tail. 90
That's true.
Josh Hudson, 93.25. Let's look at his. Oh, they're close. All he needs is 18, 19.
Mhm,
He's taken first. And this is interesting because I was looking at Brandon Levac's. And you see how this is measured at 20 and a half?
mhm.
And if you were to click into this fish, it should be a. Oh no, where's it at?
It's that top one.
No, I
Well, you
wanted
got it on the
to
19 right now.
look right here. This is what I wanted to show you. You see this right here?
Oh, they docked
Mouth
it?
open. It should be a
Yeah.
19.75, but it only got marked at a 19 and a half. So this is a perfect example
Wow, yep,
of if you leave that mouth open, they're going to deduct you
yeah.
on a quarter inch there. So just keep in mind, I was just looking at some of the bass and it's like, okay, I mean, technically, probably if you shut its mouth, you probably
It's a
wouldn't have had the
lot of identifiers.
19.75. Yeah, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like a it's like a Lego set of identifiers.
Yeah.
And the leaderboard has a mirror. You see that right here?
Yeah, I saw that.
Instead of the
I like
sticker, they
that.
have the mirror on there. So I would imagine that starts getting. I always like looking at people's photos because I'm looking on their deck to see like what
Mhm,
they're fishing with, and it's always kind of fascinating. I don't know, it's just fun, fun for me. All right, so that's gonna be your team. Right on. Let me stop sharing. Let me bring up my team where we got here. Present. Stop share. Share screen. All right, knucklehead team Wendell. So I didn't actually share any of this from last month, and so over 1,100 fish posted. That's a crap ton of fish.
wow.
So Seth Taylor out of Florida, 109.25, just putting up some donkeys, 23s, 24 and a halves. Wow.
Wow. I
So
bet
look
that's so
forward
much
to
fun.
him. Tammy Sanchez, who was on my team last year, who won it with me.
Mhm,
So I'm excited to have her back. Um, Philip McCurry, 106 inches. He's putting up 21s, 22s. So I haven't met him. We've talked. And then Jack McRoberts is currently in the lead by quite a bit. So he's got 96.75 inches. Still a lot of month left yet. I'm not giving it to him yet, but he is the second place is 71 inches. So someone's
he's
gonna
sitting
have
on
to
a
beat.
few.
Yeah, it's
Gonna upload him at the last minute.
I don't yeah, I don't know if you can do that. I don't think you can hold them very long. I think there are some rules
Oh,
around
is
it
there
for I don't
how
think you
does
can hold fish and then post them all at the last hour.
huh.
If you know that rule, I was actually having a conversation with my buddy Bowfin Junkie. He's on the call right here, or Illuminathan, and I was asking about that. I haven't found the rule, but I'm pretty sure you can't catch 5 fish on the first and be
Yeah.
monsters and then post them on the 28th. I don't think you can sandbag in that way. But nonetheless, Jack was on my team. That was the guy I was talking about at the beginning of the show who caught the clutch 19 for the win.
And then
And
caught it
so,
again?
yeah,
Oh,
and he lives down there in Gunnersville. So I need someone down there because Tammy lives in like up here in the, by New York or New Hampshire or something like that. I'm in Ohio, Phillips in, Georgia. So between those two, hopefully I need someone who understands Wheeler well because that's not a body of water that I have been on. But yeah, it's been good. It's been good. What have been? We'll finish off this question. What have been the two lures that have been slaying it for you in Tennessee?
um, SMH shaky head Z-Man on the
Okay.
SMH jig, the SMH worm on the SMH jig, and the green pumpkin goby. And then a shad pattern freeloader, for a Crush City freeloader on
Okay.
the core tackle hover rig.
Man, look at you.
That's what I caught that 22 inch.
I'll say, so you're running the hover rig. So you're running FFS?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Is that how you were doing that?
Yeah, with the
Nice.
22 inch was.
And you got the 22 out of like some creek.
Yeah, I hate going there because it's nothing but little fish out of there. Like a lot of times they're not even 12 inches. And I only went there because I had a very limited amount of time and it was the shortest drive and I wanted to get out on the water and
Yeah.
went there and the only fish I caught, but it was worth it.
22.
Yeah, it was like
That's a
8
nice
feet of
one.
water.
Is that
And
the
it's
photo
fun.
that you sent to me that I used for the
Yeah.
thumbnails for the live show? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a hoss.
Yeah. It's fun too because the way I've been catching them a lot is they'll be just laying on the bottom. You won't even be able to see them on the FFS
Yeah.
because usually I'm trying to get a different fish's attention, and it'll just drop down low enough to the bottom to get their attention, and then just see them shoot up the last second, hammer it,
Wow.
and it's fun.
I maybe someday I'll get it. I think it would actually make me it'll teach me what the bass are doing. So right now I don't know, but I think it'd be
Yeah,
fascinating to know if they're chasing something and stopped and turned away, if just notice what they're doing under the light. So
I
I don't
found
know.
it to
We'll see.
be really helpful just teaching
Yeah.
myself things like how to work the hover rig or how to work a um, swim jig or something through the water column, jerk bait, crankbait.
Yamatanuki.
Yeah, that's next on the list.
I need to get 4.25. That thing's got to be like a half a pound. I can't wait to get it. I need to order some. I got to go to like Tackle Warehouse right now to get them.
Yeah.
Well, Seth, appreciate having you on the show, man. I had a good time. We're at already an hour and 20 minutes. That flew by.
Thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, it'll be good. I look forward to meeting you in October 5th and 6th. It's going to
Yep.
be a good time down there, as it always is. I'm glad that you're able to put a team together and come down. And so, yeah, until next time, it'll probably be just that's right around the corner.
Yeah, it's not so long. I'm trying to squeeze in some trips down to Guntersville.
That's like a month and a half.
Yeah, it's not far at all.
A little less. So I'll be meeting you soon. And so thanks everyone for chiming in. I actually have someone in 2 weeks. I have Chuck Earls. And so he is a big kayak fisherman up here on Lake Erie, which is awesome. And then I'm trying to get Tackle Talk back on in a couple of weeks. And I got World's Worst Fishing queued up in like 6 weeks from now. And so I'm starting to fill the pipeline. I might actually, when the fishing season dies down, I'll start picking up this podcasting and doing it weekly again. But right now, I'm just having too much fun getting out there and doing it myself. So whenever the off season shows up, at least for here in Ohio, we'll bring this back in full force and we'll start having this podcast weekly. But thank you so much for listening in, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks on the Kayak Fishing Obsessed podcast. Thank you, Seth. You have a good one, brother.
Thank you too.